Okay, welcome everyone as we learn the incredible limud of Chok Yisrael for Parshas Tazria, Yom Revi, day 4, Be'ezus Hashem. Now, V'ra Kayin, if the Kayin sees, V'hinei Posasah Mispachas Ba'ar, and this nega spreads on his skin, the Kayin will contaminate him, Tzarasi. It is considered a biblical leprosy. Says Rashi, v'timu akayin u'mishetemeyu, when once he contaminates him, harihu muchlat, he's a mitzayra muchlat, a definite mitzayra. V'zokek l'tziparim, and then in order to be purified, he's going to need the bird offerings or tagakas and the shaving ulakarbon, and to bring his karbanas ha'amar b'parshas zois, which is said later on in Parshas Mitzayra. Tzaras hi hamispachas hazais. This scab is a leprosy. Tzaras. The reason why we say he is because tzaras is a lashon nekeva, while nega we say who because that's a lashon zachar. That's a masculine. Nega tzaras kisiya ba'adam. If there is a appearance of leprosy in a person, v'hu ve'alakayin, it should become or brought to the kayin. Maktar segura areisei be'enosha v'seisei levas kahana. V'ra kayin, and the kayin sees it. V'hinei se'eis levana ba'ar. If there's a dermatological white spot on the skin, v'hi hofcha se'er lavan, and if either it turns black hair white, or umichgas basar chai basa'es, or there's a healthy piece of flesh in middle of the white spot. V'yechzei kanavo amka chivra b'mashka v'hi afocha sara mochvar v'rosham bisra chaya b'mikta, says Rashi, umichgas, which is shainement belaz. In other words, there's a piece of healthy flesh. Shenepach mixas halavan shebeseicha says, some of the white in middle of this nega turned lamara basa, like healed flesh. Afu simin tuma, it is also a sign of definite tuma, whether say a love and below michya, whether hair turned white without two hairs turned white without the healthy piece of flesh, or michya below say lovin, or the healthy flesh in the middle without the white hair. And even though it doesn't say this type of sign only by the leprosy of Se'es, we're told, all the principal leprosies and their derivatives, whose siman tuma, a healthy flesh in the middle, is a sign of definite tuma. Says the pasuk Vaita. I'm not sure if I said the Targum. V'yachsei chanavo amka chivra b'mashcha v'yafacha sara mechvar v'roshim bisv'chaya b'amikta. Tzaras neishenesi, that healthy flesh in the middle is a sign of an old leprosy, and it healed, but underneath it is pus. Tzaras neishenesi ba'ar, it's an old leprosy on the flesh. Ba'ar b'sarai, the flesh of his skin of his flesh. V'timu akayin, the kayin declares him definitely tanami. Lo yazgirenu, he doesn't lock him up for 7 days. Ki tameyu, that's definite tuma. Skirusa atikitahi b'mishach b'srei v'sar v'nei kahana lo yazgirine arei misavu, says Rashi tzaras l'shenesi maka yeshanahi tachas hamichya. There is an old leprosy underneath the healed skin. V'chaburazu nearest bria malmala, this wound is healthy above the tachta malei alecha, but underneath it it's full of pus. Shaloi timer, you shouldn't say hayo v'olsa michya, since it looks healed. Atarena, I am going to declare it tar. Now the pasuk tells us of an unusual thing. If there is leprosy covering every inch of his flesh that the kohen could see, then he is tar. If the tzaras covers the entire flesh, the chizah tzaras has kol or hanega, and the tzaras covers the whole skin of the one that's afflicted, meroishay v'ad raglav, from his head to his feet, l'chol mara einei hakayin, whatever can be seen by the eyes of the kayin. V'im miska tiske skirusa b'mashka v'savka sigirusa yas kol mashach machtasha mereish vad ragloi l'chol chezu einei kahana. Meirosha Yishaladim says Rashi vad raglav l'chol mara einei hakayin. Now this tells us that a kain could only view a tzaras if he has good eyesight. Prat l'kain shechoshach ma'oray. That excludes a kain whose vision is dimmed, whether he's blind in one eye or he has poor vision, he cannot view a nega. The kain sees v'hinei kisa tzaras as kol b'saray. If the tzaras is covering his entire flesh, v'tiras hanega, he then will purify this type of leprosy. Kuloi hafach lavain, the entire person has turned white. Taru, that means that he's tar. V'yech zeichan avachafas girusi yas kol bisrei v'yedake yas makdasha kulei yas makdasha kulei is hapach lemachavar dechehu. Now, if you remember Naaman, when the Navi told him that he should immerse himself in the Yarden 7 times, he got angry. He thought he would wave upon him and do something and say Hashem's name. However, Vayikshu Avodav, the Naaman's servants came near to him. Vayidabru elav, and they spoke to him respectfully. Vayomer Avi, and they said to him, father is a term of master. They said to him, master, if Davar Agadol Hanavi Dibur Alecha, if the Navi would have told you something hard, Haloi Sasa, you would have done it. You should surely do it if he tells you to bathe 7 times. So Naaman listened to them. He went down, and he dipped himself in the Yarden 7 times, Kedvar Isha Elikim, like the word of the man of God, and his flesh turned clean and without leprosy, like a young child, Vayita, and he was purified. And this, now he was very grateful and awed. Vayoshev Elisha Elikim, so Naaman returned to the man of God, he and his entire camp, his entire entourage, and he came and stood respectfully before him. Now I know there is no God in the entire land, only in Yisrael. Take now blessing from your servant, and he wanted to give him a lot of money, a lot of produce. And the Navi said, Chai Hashem asher amarti lefanav, by the life of Hashem, as I stand before him, im ekach, if I will take anything, vayiftzeh bo lakachas, and he pressed him to take, vayimoin, and he refused. The reason why he refused, Rashi says, is from the Tanchuma, shedmei avodah zarah muravim, but he don't want to take idolatrous money. Vayomer Naaman, so Naaman said, V'lo yutan no la'avda, v'lo, you won't take anything, then please, yutan no la'avdecha, please give to your servant, maset semed prodim adama. Give me the burden of a pair of mules of earth from Eretz Yisrael. Because I want to take the holy earth from Eretz Yisrael and go back and build by me an altar. I won't bring burnt offerings and sacrifice to other gods, only to Hashem. And he said, I know that I'm going to have to go into the church, into Beis Rimon, into the church, and help the king to bow down. And I hope in this matter Hashem will forgive your servant. When my master goes into the church of Beis Rimon, to bow down, al yodi, and he's going to lean on my hand, so I'm going to have to bow down with him. Beis Rimon, and I'm going to bow down in Beis Rimon. Beis Rimon, when I bow down, Yishlach Hashem la'avdecha, I hope Hashem will forgive your servant. Because I don't mean it, but I'm just joining the king because I have to. Now in Mishlei, the Shlomo HaMelech tells us that we should lap up wisdom as one who eats sweets. You know, people like, you give them milk, chocolate, ice cream. People like it very much. So, Echo b'ni dvash, eat my son honey, kitayv, v'noifes mosek al chikecha, and honeycombs are sweet to your palate. Kain de'echachma l'nafshecha, so also know knowledge to your soul. Imatzasa, because if you find knowledge, then v'yesh achris, you will have a future. V'sikvascha, and your hope, lo sikaris, will never get cut down, because we know that Ashrei Misha Balakan, fortunate is somebody comes to the next world, the Talmud biyadai. Knowledge is a person's future. Al teroiv roshel in veit tzaddik. A wicked person should beware from ambushing the house of a tzaddik. Al tishaded riftzai. Do not try to destroy or ruin his place where he reclines. Ki sheva, you won't succeed against the tzaddik, because even if he falls, he gets right back up. Ki sheva yipol tzaddik v'kam. He might fall 7 times, but he gets back up. He right away gets back up. He doesn't get discouraged. He doesn't let the Yetzirah pull him down. But Risham Yikoshlu Barab, the wicked, they stumble and they're finished in their evil. Binefol ayivcha al tismach. When your enemy falls, don't rejoice. Hashem doesn't want to see that. Uvikoshlu, when he stumbles, al yogel libecha, let your heart not rejoice. Pen yira Hashem, lest Hashem see that improper behavior, v'raba einav, and it will be evil in his eyes, v'heishiv me'el of apay, and he will move from that person his anger and bring it, God forbid, on you. And now we learn it. We're learning in the Daf Yomi Bava Basra, and now we learn ahead the 7th parak of Bava Basra. If I tell Yitzi, Beis Kur offer ani moichalach, I'm selling you acreage of a Beis Kur, and that's 30 sa. Beis Kur is 30 sa. If there were clefts in the ground that were deep 10 tvachim, or racks high 10 tvachim, Yitzi doesn't have to accept that in the Beis Kur. It doesn't count when they're measuring out the Beis Kur. Pachas mikan, but if the clefts are less than 10 tvachim deep, or the rocks are less than 10 tvachim high, they're bottled to the land, and then nimdadim ima, then they're measured with it. However, the imam like Beis Kur offer, like a Beis Kur. So when you say like a Beis Kur, it means as the Rav says, Beis Kur means k'moshehu, the way it is. Then afilu hayasham nekam amukim yaisim asar tvachim, even if it was clefts deeper than 10 tvachim, islam gevayim yaisim asar tvachim, or rocks higher than 10 tvachim, hari elu nimdaden nima. He has to accept it with it. Beis Kur offer ani moichalach mida bechevel. If I tell Yitzi, I'm selling you a Beis Kur measured by the rope, that means precisely. Piches kolshu, if I give him a little bit less, yanaka, I have to deduct from the price. Hoisu kolshu, if I give him a little bit extra, yazer, he has to return it. However, if I was expressive, and I said, im amar, hein chaser, hein yeser, whether it's a little less, whether it's a little more, then afilu piches roivalasa, even if I gave him less, a quarter for every saw, 30 quarters is a quarter of a kav for every saw, so 30 quarters is 7.5 kav. Or I gave him extra 7.5 kav, higiyu, because that's what I meant, oy pachas or yeser, either oy chaser or yeser, a little less or a little more. However, yoser mikan, but if it's off more than that, more than 7.5 kav, Yasa Cheshbon. So, in the event that in the event that I gave him less, more than 7.5 kav, then I got to give him more. then I have to give him more. Now, if I gave him more, so what do? If I gave Yitzi, let's say 9 kav extra, so Mahu Marzulai, what does he return to me? Mois. He returns to me the money. You know why? Because I don't want him to return to me the 9 kav. What am I going to do with 9 kav? Let's say not 9 kav. We'll see, that's different. But because 9 kav is a field already. But 8.5 kav. What am I going to do with 8.5 kav? So therefore, I could insist that he give me extra money. The Imrotz, if I want it, Mazel Karka, I could demand that I want the 8.5 overture back. Why do we say that I have a right to demand that he should give me money? To strengthen me, because what am I going to do with a tiny little piece of land? However, She'im Shir Basad the base Tisha Kavan. However, She'im Shir Basad the base Tisha Kavan, if the overture was 9 kav, now that's already a field, Ubagina base Chatzi kav, and in the garden a half a kav, Kiva base Raiva, so there, where it's going to be a regular field to me, so there I can insist that he returns me the karka, he returns to me that which is extra. Now, he doesn't only return to me if, let's say, instead of 7.5 kav, it's 8 kav. He doesn't just return to me 1/4 of a kav. But once it adds up to more than a roiva kav to each saw, he has to return me the full overture. Elas kol ha-moiser, he has to return to me the whole overture. Mida bechevel ani moichelach. Here, I use contradictory terminology. I tell Yitzi, I'm selling you a kur measured by the rope, and then I say, hein choser, hein yeser. Whether less, whether more. So we're going to see that this is going like Ben Nanas, who holds like Reb Meir, tfais lashon achra. So therefore, bitel hein choser, hein yeser, the latter statement, whether less, whether more, cancels measured by a rope, and therefore there could be, even if it's less or more, up to 1/4 of a kav per saw. However, hein chaser, hein yeser, mida bechevel, so then the lashon achron is mida bechevel, then it has to be exact amount. Bitel mida bechevel, the latter statement of mida bechevel cancels hein chaser, hein yeser, divrei Ben Nanas. That's the opinion of Ben Nanas. If I tell him I'm giving it to you, the land, b'simonov u'b'mitzarav, that are within these landmarks and within these boundaries, then even pachas rishtos, even if it's a 1/6 less, higiyu, the deal is kept since we gave clear landmarks. Achtos, but if it's more than a 1/6, up to a 1/6, then Yanaka, then you have to deduct from the price. Now, the next Gemara is a little bit, the next Mishnah is a little bit ambiguous. If I say to Nachman, Chatzi sada ani moichelach, I'm selling you half of this field. Now I don't say which half. Mishamnim beinayim v'noitel chatzi sadei. Now mishamnim beinayim, the Gemara says shuman yehei beinayim. The fat is between them, meaning that I could, if let's say we assess the field as being worth $1,000, I have to give Nachman $500 worth, but I could give him the inferior $500 worth. Nachman says, I want the better one. You know, you could have field where I give him value, but I take for myself the smaller part, which is more fertile. And I give him more, but less fertile. So I'm taking the fat. And the din is, since I am holding the karka, Hamoitzi mechaber of a raya. I'm the mulzik, so I could take the better half for myself. Chetzia b'darim ani moichelach. I say to Nachman's going to think twice with dealing with me after hearing this. Chetzia b'darim ani moichelach. I'm selling you a half to the south. So Nachman wants the half on the south. So again, mishamnim beineim. All I meant was the value of half on the south. But I could give him then any half of that value. And I could take the more superior half for myself. V'noitel chetzia b'darim. And he has to take half that's worth the value of land on the south. V'hu mekabel alav mekayim hagader. When he divides the field now, because I sold him half the field, he has to accept himself to give the land to build the fence between my field and his field, and charetz uben charetz, a small ditch and a large ditch and a small ditch. Now this is in order that his animals shouldn't jump over the fence. So he has to make a large ditch of 6 tvachim, a small ditch of 3 tvachim, and 1 tefach in between the 2 ditches. We'll learn about why that is in the Gemara shortly. V'kamu charetz, how much is this ditch or trench? Shisha tvachim, while a ven charetz, the small one is shleisha, with a tefach in between, giving us a gap of 10 tvachim, so the animals shouldn't jump over the fence. So now the Gemara is going to explain a lot of what I explained when we learned this complicated Mishnah. When I divide the field with Nachman, he gets the inferior half. Now, the Gemara thought that Mishamnin Beineim means that Nachman could say, we should divide the shuman. You should get half of the superior part, and I get half of the superior part. However, Amalei, he said to him, Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Ada ochlon kafnaisa b'bavel, while you were eating sweet dates in Bavel, we were learning pshat of this. Targimna miseifa. We brought a raya from the seifa. The Ketani seifa chetzim b'darim ani meichelach. Half in the south I'm selling to you. Mishamnim b'neim. They take this shuman v'noitel chetzim b'darim, and he takes half in the south. Now, according to you, what's mishamnim b'neim? Amay mishamnim b'neim? Why should they divide the shuman? He told them to take half the value, half of the south. When he said half in the south, he meant half the value of the south. So he could give him half the value of the south in any place and keep the superior part. I could keep the superior part for myself. When I told Nachman he could have half the field, I meant half the value of the field. But I could take the superior part all for myself. Now, Mekabel alav mekayim gader, Nachman has to put up the fence, Tana, and he has to put up on his side of the fence, he has to make charetz and ben charetz, a large ditch and a small one. So Tana, charetz mibechutz, on the outside, in other words, on his side of the fence, he has to put a large ditch, or ben charetz, and tana charetz mibechutz. Further away from the fence is the large ditch, or ben charetz mibefnim, and the smaller ditch is within. And both of them are, behind the fence. Why? In order that an animal shouldn't jump and leap over the fence. Says the Gemara, v'lavid charetz, so only make the large ditch of 6 tvachim, v'loy lavid ben charetz, and not make the small ditch. Says the Gemara, I need a ravach. If he would only make a big ditch, since it's very wide, kaima begavei, the animal will stand inside the large ditch with kafsa and still jump over the wall. Says the Gemara, v'lavid ben charetz, make a small ditch, v'loy lavid charetz, and not a big ditch. I need a cut. No, if it's only a 3 tefachim ditch, he'll jump right over it. Kaima asvasa, he'll stand by its edge with kafsa and leap over it. V'kama bein charetz leben charetz. How much space between the big ditch and the small ditch? A tefach. Now the next zayar, I will give a preface that it probably doesn't refer to us nowadays. It was referred to when we were on a much higher level, and it shouldn't be used now because it could cause a lot of shalom bayis problems. But it's good to know what was done in the past when people women didn't have such complex lives as today. But let's see the Zayar. Amr Reb Yitzchak, Hachi Taninon, here we learned Negat Saras. So what's the meaning of a plague of leprosy? Nega hudina takifa sharya ba'alma. Nega is harsh judgment that devolves upon the world. Tsaras means sigiru, something is shut, which means that midas hadin causes the tzinar, the pipeline of shefa taiv, to be shut by a person. Kamadat Omar, sigiru dinahayre ilah, it shut the light from above. Skiru de tivu ilah, there is shut the goodness from above. The loy nachis la'alma, that it won't come down to the world. Kisiyah b'adam, when it's upon a man, here we're talking about not something metaphysical, b'adam stam, it's talking about a human. V'uv el ha'kayin, and again it's talking about the human kayin, the kayin the l'sata, the kayin below. Du istakon, he is able to fix l'miftach ahu sigiru, to open up that pipeline which is shut. Uladloka b'tzion di'ishtachu al yadoi birchan, and to reignite the lamps that is found and to reignite the lamps that could be found through his avodah, birchan, to give blessing la'elo l'sata, for above and below. The yisavar, that the leprosy should pass, the yistalikahu nega, and be removed, and then the yishrei nihiru derachme al kola, then there will be then there will once again devolve light of mercy on everybody, or begin kach, and because of this, v'huva el hakayin. Now, Omar Rebbe Abba tells us, Chamino le'inu b'nei alma, I have seen the people of the world, Deloy mashkechan v'lo yodon, they don't watch and they don't know, b'yakara d'mareyan, in the honor of their masters. Ksiv b'hu b'Yisrael, it says about Klal Yisrael, Asher ifdalti eschem and ha'amim, I separated you from the nations, li'oisli, to be for me. Uksiv iskadishtem, you should be holy, v'yisem kadoshim, and become holy, ki kadosh ani Hashem, you should sanctify yourself and be holy, for I am holy. If people distance themselves, Anu kedusha dilahain, where is their holiness? Ha ru'usa dilahain israchakas minei, their desire, their thoughts is distance from Hashem. Ukra achriz v'amar, the pasuk declares and announces, Al tiu kisus keferet, don't be like a horse, like a mule, ein hoven, without understanding. B'ma isparshim b'nei nosha, in what way are people different, misus v'feret, from a horse and a mule? B'kedusha de garmayu, when they sanctify themselves, l'ishtako shleimen urishimen mikola, and then they become perfect and the Pirush Bir Azayah says, Misumanim, they carry a mark from all other people. And because of this, the mating of people are at specific times. To direct their thoughts, to cleave onto the Holy One. And again, I want to caution you that this Zohar is known not to apply nowadays. Nowadays, when people have a certain lifestyle, this is not something that we can accomplish. We've already awakened the fact that the Palgus Leila at midnight, Chatzais, now with Eastern Standard Time, now it's 4 minutes to 12. The Palgas Leila at midnight, Kutcha Barichu, all begins to the Eden. Hashem goes into the Garden of Eden, Lishtasho in Tzadikaya, to delight with the righteous. Knesset Yisrael Meshapach the Kutcha Barichu, and Knesset Yisrael, the Shechina, praises Hashem. B'Yishata Derusa, it's a time of favor. Lizdapka B'hu, to mate. Now, so therefore that was a time to mate after Chatzos. The Chavraya, the sages that learn at that time after Chatzos. The Chavraya, the Mishtadlei Baraisa, that are learning after Chatzos. Mishtatfei Ba B'Knesset Yisrael, they join with the Shechina. L'shapcha l'malka kadisha, to praise the holy king Kutshabarichu, this asking baraisa, by learning Torah. So shar b'nei nasha, for the rest of people, kidein eden ru'usa, this is a time of favor, l'skatcha b'kedusha to Kutshabarichu, and to mate to l'chavna ru'usa, and to direct their thoughts l'stapka, to cleave to Hashem. However, the inon chavraya, those special colleagues, the Mishtadli Baraisa, that learn Torah, Zivuga Delhain Bishata Zivuga Achra Ishtakach, they mate at the time where there's a special bonding between the Shechina and Kutshabarichu. That's why Mishabash L'Shabbos, from Friday night to Friday night, Lechavna Ru'usa, to direct their thoughts, L'Stapkabei Kutshabarichu, or B'Knesset Yisrael, to be cleave with Kutshabarichu, Shechinte, do Inan Ru'usa, it's a special time of favor, Friday night. The Misparchan Kola, that everything is best, Eloi V'Tatoi, above and below. Now, even Enosh Israchiku Minei, if people distance themselves from this, the Ovdon Kibi'ire, and they do like animals, Anu Kedusha Delain, where is their holiness? Lishtakha Kadishan, to find themselves holy. On Inon Nafshan Kadishan, the Mashkan Meila, where are the souls that they bring down from heaven? Shlomo Malkach Tzavach V'Amar, and Shlomo HaMelech screamed and says, Gam b'loi das, if you do without Shechina, we'll see das and Shechina, Nefesh Loi Tov, you bring souls that are not good. Gam b'loi das, says the Zohar, Manu das, do Kutshabarichu. If you're doing it without Hashem, Nefesh Loi Tov, do Nefesh. This is the soul, the Inon Moshkin V'Avodayu, that they draw down with their mating. Loi Tov, it's not good. Sitra Achra is Mashchan al Ayu Nafsha. You're drawing it from the other side. Nafshasa Delaviyu Tov, which is not good. Begin to like Mechavne Libayu L'Kutshabarichu. They don't direct their hearts to Hashem. Mandi Slihit B'Yetzahara, one who is driven by his Yetzahara, without desire and direction of heart to Hashem. They bring from the side of the Yetzirah, they draw the soul, the lav which is not good. Without thought, nefesh loitav, one who's hasty with his feet is a chayte, is a sinner. He's missing out. Mandi one who's hasty with his feet. V'dochi shaita, and he pushes away this time. Below re'usa kedisha, without holy thought. Chayte, he's a sinner, he misses out. Chayte vade bechula, he misses out in everything. V'aldo, and for this, Shoryan Makdish and Bishin B'nei Nosha, and this leprosy comes on people, and this perhaps why we don't have this nowadays. V'asinu b'anpayu, and it testifies in their face, b'chatzifusa dilhain, about their chutzpah and impulsiveness, la'arzah da kutchabrichu ma'asbu, to show that Hashem is repulsed by them, v'lav daite behind, he doesn't have his mind upon them, ad inun zakoin, until they purify themselves, o machsharon oivdayu, and make their deeds worthy, kilomekadmin, as before, and then umizbarchen, and then they will be blessed. And now the Zohar teaches us from the very practical Musar of the Shari Tshuva Rabbeinu Yaina, how it's very important to feel regret for our sins. As the Zohar tells us, Ikar Tshuva, as we are, we just did Chodesh Tammuz, so we're 2 months before El. So Ikar Tshuva hu acharata. The main tshuva is regret of sin. Yavin Levava, his heart should understand, Ki Rav Amar, it's evil and bitter, Azva Yes Hashem, to forsake Hashem. V'yasem aliba, you should take to heart, Ki Yesh Einish, that there's punishment, V'nokum, and vengeance, V'shilim, and payment ala oven, for sin. Kenyan Shenema, like it says in the Pasuk, Li Nokum V'shilim. To me, Hashem says it's vengeance and payment. V'nemar gur lochem, you should be fearful mipnei cherev, because of the sword. Ki chema avainas, the anger of sin is expressed by the cherev, by the sword. V'yischor al ma'asav aram, you should regret his evil deeds. V'yomer b'lvava, and say in his heart, Mea sisi, what did I do? Eich lo yapachal alikim leneged einai. How did the fear of God not be in front of my eyes? V'lo yagorti, and I wasn't afraid mitachachais, from the rebuke al avon, for my sins, umin hashvatim aroim, and the bad judgments, the bad punishments. Ki rabim machovim l'rasha, the wicked get many pains. How loy chamalti al gufi, I wasn't compassionate on my body. V'loy chasa einai alav, and my eyes didn't care shichasai, from its destruction, because of the pleasure, momentary pleasure, I didn't foresee. This could be compared to a person, he steals and he does corruption, and he eats and he's satisfied, and he knows, after he eats and after he drinks, the judge is going to break his teeth with gravel. It's sweet to a man, false bread, but and after Yamali Piu, Chatzis, then his mouth will be full of gravel. The Rabbis, and worse than this, I was cruel to my precious soul. V'nitma, and I caused it to be sullied, to be defiled, b'gilula yitzrei, by the filth of my passion. What did I benefit with all that I acquired? If I'm bad in the eyes of my master. How did I trade for a fleeting life? My future forever and ever. How could I be compared and likened to an animal? And I followed my yetzer kasus keferet, like a horse, like a mule, ein haven, without understanding. And I turned from the way of intellect. The Creator blew in my nostrils nishmas chayim, a soul of life, chachmas slave, the wisdom of the heart, v'tova seichel, and the goodness of an intellect, la'akirah, to recognize Hashem, Uliyira milafanav, and to be afraid of him, v'lim shel baguf, and to rule over my body, v'chol toldoisav, and all of its actions. Kasher himshila al shar balichayim she'ena medabrim, as Hashem gave me the power to rule over other creatures that don't talk. Me'asher yokra be'enov nichpada, since the soul is precious in his eyes and is honored, right? So Hashem gave it its power. V'achrei asher ba'avur zois nivresi, I was created for this purpose, to recognize Hashem and take care of the soul. And v'hi bi heifech b'zeh, and I do the opposite. Lama li chayim, what I need life for. Kinyan shenema adam toyim derech haskel. If a person strays from the way of intellect, b'kol reform yanuach, he rests amongst the dead. Void, and more, he's worse than an animal. I didn't do like an animal. I'm worse than an animal. An ox recognizes its master. And the donkey recognizes the trough of its owner. Right? It says a dog never bites the hand that feeds it. I didn't know and I didn't think about my Creator. And I sent my soul to be free of its master. Ta'amti tzufi, I tasted sweets. V'nashisi soifi, I forgot about my end. V'gazalti v'chamasti, I stole, I corrupted. V'aldol basasti, I stepped over the poor. V'loi zacharti, I didn't think of the day of death. There won't last before my soul, biltiyam giviyasi v'admasi, except for my body and its earth in the grave. And that which I said, that people don't stop to regret. Hu asher diber Yirmiyah, this is what Yirmiyah lamented, all of Hashalom, he should be blessed. Ain't ish nicham al rasa, a person doesn't regret his evil. Lema ma, it's easy to say, what did I do? So a person has to think, what did I do? How did I speak Lashon Hara? How did I talk in shul? How did I yell in the house? Finally, the Rambam tells us that the time for the avodah of karbanos is only in the day. Kol karbanos ein makriven oisan elo b'yayim. Shenema b'yayim tzavoyse es b'nei Yisrael. On the day Hashem instructed b'nei Yisrael lahakriv es karbaneim. B'yayim, in the day, v'loi b'layla, and not in the night. Lefiktach ein shochten zvachim elo b'yayim. We only shecht in the day. Now, how do you know shita in the day? And the zikas dam is that day. And we only do the sprinkling of the blood on the day of the shchita. Shenema b'yayim hakrivai as zivkoi, on the day that his zevach is offered. Now zivkoi, zevach means shchita, and on that day it has to be offered, which is the dam. B'yayim hasvicha tia hakrava. That means the blood has to be sprinkled, because that's the ikar of the avodah, ki adam hu b'nefesh yichaper. V'keven sheshaka achama, once the sun sets, nifsal adam, the dam is already disqualified. Kol shekirva matir b'yam, once you sprinkle the blood in the day, malin oiselim is ber kol halayla. You could offer the sacrificial portions, the kidneys, the lobe of the liver, the fats, you could offer the whole night. Ketzad sacrifices that the blood is sprinkled in the day. Maktirin emureim, you could smoke up the sacrificial portions balayla ad sheyala amen hashachar, until dawn. Now, by an oila, they offered up all the limbs. That's why it's called an oila. It's kula oila. V'chein evarei ha'oilais, the limbs of the burnt offerings. Maktirin oisam balayla ad sheyala amen hashachar, until dawn. However, they made a siyag that it should be done by chatzais, or k'dei lahachik min hapshia, in order to distance from negligence. Amru hachacham she'em maktirin amarim ve'var ma'oila ela ad chatzais halayla. You shouldn't do it until chatzais, in order to make sure that the job gets done, and you shouldn't go over dawn. Now, afal pi shemutar la'akter emurim ve'var ma'oila, even though it's allowed to do the sacrificial portions and the limbs in the night, that's not the lechatchila. You don't deliberately delay it. It's better to do it all in the day, which is the ikar time of the avodah, because chaviva mitzvah b'shait, the precious is a mitzvah in its time. What's the raya? On Shabbos, they do the haktara of the evarim on Shabbos, even though they could do it Matzah Shabbos. Shari Hector Emurim Ve'ivarim, the sacrificial portions and the limbs, Apal Pishik Shev V'Laila, even though you could do it Matzah Shabbos, Doichen as a Shabbos Mizmanan. It supersedes the Shabbos, and you do it during the day. Ve'ima Achronoi Sam the Matzah Shabbos. We don't delay it to Matzah Shabbos. So because Chaviva Mitzvah V'Shait, if it would be the same thing, then why do it on Shabbos? Wait till after Shabbos. So it's Chaviva Mitzvah V'Shait to do it in its time during the day. We want to thank you for joining us and wish you a wonderful evening.